Hi everyone, welcome to the Aaron White Show, and I'm your host, Aaron. Today we have a fantastic guest, Lachlan Samuel. Lachlan is the host of the Open Up podcast. Welcome to the show, Lachlan.
Cheers, brother. Thank you for taking time to do this.
Oh, you're most welcome. Hey, can you tell me about the Open Up podcast and why you started it?
Yeah, man. Essentially, I've just gone through my own mental health journey or struggle, overcome a lot of those challenges, which are based primarily around FIFO work and the time I spent working FIFO. Just made the podcast after being evacuated for being suicidal, man, and just wanting some sort of resource for people who are struggling like me in isolation, something that they could listen to without anyone knowing and without being judged. And so I started the podcast, and it's just kicked on since then. It's probably been about 2 years and 100 odd episodes.
Oh, sweet. 100's a pretty good effort. Hey, can you tell me about the suicidal bit? Like, what happened there?
Yeah. Do you want me to just tell my story, or you want me to tell you about that particular?
I can tell your story. Go for it.
Yeah, man. So at about 19, I was a cheating narcissist living in Auckland, had a partner, was cheating on her frequently, and then instead of accepting responsibility and the consequences, I was just manipulating people and destroying friendships and relationships just to make sure I wasn't getting caught out. Because of that, man, felt like a real fraud. People in my circles, my family, my friends all thought I was this nice, humble, genuine guy, when in reality I knew I wasn't. And so I became addicted to ecstasy, became an alcoholic at 19, and became addicted to steroids as well. I was dependent on steroids for external validation. And so got to a point where my best friend at the time found out that I was sexting his partner, and instead of me taking responsibility, accepting the consequences, I ran away to Kalgoorlie and bought a one-way ticket and moved over and started working in the mines, bro. So went from making like $400 to $500 a week as an apprentice, working maybe 60 hours a week, to landing in Kalgoorlie and within 2 weeks making $2,000 to $2,500 a week. And so, as you can imagine, like being this cheating narcissist, manipulating people, I just started doing the same thing over there, wasting all my money, and ended up meeting someone, and we moved to Perth after about 4 years, and I audited everything I did, or everything I spent while I was in Kalgoorlie, and I wasted about $300,000 on alcohol and drugs and skimpies, man. So I know a lot of FIFO guys have issues with money, and I understand that wholeheartedly because I've been there, been to the depths. But in moving to Perth, my partner at the time, I was working away. It was only a 5 days on, 2 days off roster, so it was pretty good for me. But when I was going away, I was going to like the boys, the brotherhood, purpose, and this identity as a guy who was making good money and working really hard, which I'd never had my entire life. So, I felt like I was enough. But for her, when I left, it was nothing but being alone because we had no friends and family. And so she really fell into a deep, like severe depression, began threatening to take her life unless I stopped, and I didn't. Again, addicted to that identity of making a lot of money, feeling worthy. And instead I went to a 4-in-1 roster, so made it even worse. And we split up. I became depressed. I didn't realize that having a partner was like having a validation servo to top up whenever I needed it. So we split up. I became depressed. I got forced to resign from my 4-in-1 gig. I was just so embarrassed about having to leave all the boys that I cut off contact with everyone. Started drinking heavily, got back into the drugs, abused steroids, and just started sleeping with as many women as I could to make me feel good enough. And then, yeah, man, got to a point where I just borrowed so much money off people that I attempted to take my life because I felt like I was a burden. And so from there, it was about a 2-year period where I worked on myself a hell of a lot. I thought I had all the mental health tools in my tool belt. Got back out to Wheatstone, another 4-in-1 gig, making even better money this time. And within 3 months, one of the guys out there took his life on site. that started conversations that he was a pussy, he was a fag for doing it. And then, yeah, man, I fell back into depression and one day just walked off site into my superintendent's office, cried and said, bro, if I go back to my room, I'm probably going to try and hang myself. And fair play to him. He let me cry, shut the door, gave me space, packed my room up and got me out of there. But I never heard from that company or that guy again. And 6 months later, one of my good friends up there took his life too. So the podcast is something that's on my heart, something that I do because I love it. And it's all spawned from overcoming those challenges, man, and going through that all.
Hey, can we touch on the your attempted suicides? And did your girlfriend actually try to attempt suicide, or she just threatened it?
She tried, man.
Can you please, because I want to get inside your head and her head. How did so? Did you try to hang yourself, or how did you try to do yours?
Yeah, I tried to hang myself.
And when you did, was that really premeditated? Like, did you write a goodbye note? Did you actually go down to the hardware store and buy a rope purposely for that?
No, I didn't. I already had rope, bro. I already had rope in the shed. Like I was doing rigging as well, so I had ropes and slings and stuff like that at home, lanyards. So I had everything I needed, and it was really just like after borrowing money off of a family member that I knew couldn't afford to give me money. It was sort of like you've really become a burden. I was in a huge amount of debt, no money, couldn't pay my child support, and yeah, just decided like you're a burden, you're a piece of. Mulled that over for about 2 weeks. Woke up one day, I was just like, yep, that's it, time to do it. Went outside, strung it up, stepped up on my little box or crate, and stepped off, bro. And then like immediately, like as soon as I did it, instant regret, instant like scared, instantly just like, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing?
Once you step off the crate though, wouldn't you, there's no going back? Like it would have started strangling you and you'd die. How did you stop that?
Luckily I didn't do the knot as well as I should have.
Yep.
But looking back now, it's probably an unconscious not wanting to go through with it.
Well, that makes sense because, as you said, you're a rigger. You should know what knot it is. So, yeah, if you didn't do it correctly, then you obviously didn't want to do it. Can you please tell me, like, when you did step off, did you have, like, your life flash before your eyes or any of that type of stuff, or is that just not real?
It is real, bro, because your body will produce DMT before you die. So, like, that is real. That is scientific. And that's, like, I remember seeing my daughter walking to school holding her mum's hand, hey, pigtails, pink Paw Patrol backpack. I just remember thinking, like, I'm never going to see her again, never going to get to kiss or cuddle her. She's never going to think she was good enough for me to stick around. And, man, that crushed me. I remember just lying on the ground for ages, just sobbing.
And you reckon that's made you a better dad now because you went through that?
Well, yeah, I was a narcissist before that.
So you obviously stopped your cheating ways and all that straight away after that, or?
Yeah, well, at that point, I wasn't a cheater, man. So
okay.
I'd been working on myself. I was pretty loyal. When I split up with my partner, when we split up and I became depressed on the 4-in-1, then I turned back to those, I guess, seeking external validation. But yeah, I don't know. It's well, I do know. I was selfish before that, and then everything up until that point had been about me and how I could get whatever I wanted and feel the way that I wanted to feel. But after that, and the thought of leaving her behind without a dad, that's probably the first time in my life, or it is the first time in my life that I considered living with the purpose being to be there for someone else rather than to get what I wanted.
And that's probably why you started, as you already said, why you started the Open Up podcast. But you just want to stop being selfish and give back to as many as you can, as well as your daughter. Hey,
it's not the reason for starting it though.
Hey?
Yeah, that's not the reason for starting it though. Reason for starting it is just feeling low while I was out at Wheatstone, feeling what it's like to not be able to talk about it and to have guys tell you or tell you that someone who has taken their life and being scared to open up, really. And that's where Open Up comes from, is having a platform and a space to be vulnerable and to be authentic and to share what you're going through in regards to mental health.
Yeah. Yeah, the mining sector definitely does have this whole harden up approach. And as you said, yeah, you're a softy or whatever if you actually do open up. I find it's definitely changing. Like the attitudes of people in the mining industry are a lot more open and willing to talk about their feelings and all that. Personally, I don't want to say I still got a bit of that harden up approach in the back of my mind, but I would never call anyone like if you're a softy. I don't actually put people down, but you definitely, I don't know, I'd probably find it hard to actually talk about my feelings. I'd probably feel soft, or I'd probably feel, I don't know how you can say it, just, I wouldn't really approach my mates and talk about something that's going through. I think I'm quite detached, to be honest. Probably put this wall up to stop you feeling that way, to actually go through with the longer rosters and stuff. But luckily the mining industry's changed and we've got the shorter
Yeah, and
rosters.
I think the way that you feel about that is a reflection on how secure you feel within yourself and feeling those feelings, having those thoughts, and working through those emotions. Hey, like especially if we've got a toughen up attitude, it's usually just our projection onto others of how we feel about ourselves. So that at the end of the day, that's usually what all of that stuff is, man, is just our own insecurities bubbling up to the surface, and then us putting on a mask or a front to ensure that we don't tap into uncomfortability, because not changing is being comfortable, and everyone loves to stay in the comfort zone.
Yeah, well, it's easy to stay in the comfort zone, that's for sure.
Yeah, even if the comfort zone is toxic and destructive.
Yeah, well, that's true. It's better the devil you know than a different one, or whatever that saying is. Hey, did you end up getting any not repercussions, any side effects from steroids?
Not that I was aware of, bro. Got a little bit snappier, shorter temper, but I was always a really aggressive person.
Yeah.
So yeah, not that I was aware of. I was taking Trenbolone, which is, I believe, has shown to reduce lung capacity, which I did notice. That's probably the only thing that I could say that has limited me, and obviously bank account. That's probably the biggest one.
Yep. Copy of that. Hey, I listened to one of the other podcasts where you get interviewed, and you're talking about you're going to try out psychedelic drugs to open your mind or something like that. Did you end up doing that?
Yeah, I've done a few, to be honest, and I would say better than that is something called holotropic breathwork or biodynamic breathwork. Unless it's the same response, you can still have that same DMT trip that you'd get from psychedelic drugs. Like, done DMT, didn't have the best trip. Actually, did that while I was at Wheatstone.
Oh, okay, on the mind side.
in the depths of being suicidal. Yeah, at camp. But yeah, breathwork has probably been the most profound for me in terms of opening myself up. The first breathwork session I did, it was as at one of our events, and it was maybe a half session, like half an hour of breathing, a particular breathing pattern. And within that session, I was forced to relive my old man trying to drown me in the bathtub when I was like 6 years old, which I'd buried, and which has a lot of significance around the feeling of not being good enough and not being worthy, which then obviously led to a lot of those actions and behaviors and thoughts as a narcissist, as a cheater, as a FIFO worker who was attached to the money in the title.
Can you touch on that? Did you talk to your dad later on in life about why he tried to kill you, like drown you, or?
Yeah, just he was he said first off he said he didn't remember it, but he started the homicide squad in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And so essentially all his job was to go after murderers and rapists every day, and he didn't really have, in talking to him and knowing what I know now, he didn't have any positive way to express it or any positive outlet apart from working out. And so he couldn't talk about any of the stuff at home as well. And so, I mean, like Sigmund Freud, one of the first psychologists, or the guy who created psychology, he talks about suppressing anger and suppressing those emotions and desires. It's got to come up in a slip of tongue or aggression or abuse or something like that. And so that's just what it was for him, bro. Not knowing how to deal with what he's been through, not having dealt with his childhood trauma, um, which he went through worse than me when he was a kid. So, yeah. And when you have an understanding, when you have context, bro, it's easier to give someone empathy and compassion for hurting you or hurting people that you love.
Yeah. Was it premeditated though, or was it you were just having a bath and then he just snapped and pushed you down? He didn't.
No, it was just that slip, just like I said, man, in terms of slip of tongue and just bubbling to the surface, and that action just being a reaction to, I think it was me pissing in the bath or
Oh yeah.
going toilet in the bath.
Yeah. Then he just snapped. Why'd you do that? Then just did it. And as you said, he was probably
Yeah.
blanked out and didn't even realize he was
Yep.
doing it.
Yeah, man.
It's pretty full on. Sorry you had to go through that.
It's
Hey,
all right, bro. All part of the lesson.
it definitely built, I don't want to say character building, but I guess it kind of is. Makes you into the person you are today. I know you went through some
Yeah.
other trauma I think when you were about 8. Are you willing to talk about that?
Yeah, I got at about 8, family friend. We were watching a movie. Well, yeah, watching a movie in my parents' house in the lounge. Pulled my pants down, put porn on, started playing with me, bro, and made me come. And then for about 2 years from then, had sex with me for about 2 years. So, like throughout that process, he'd tell me like my dick was too small. We'd watch porn all the time. And the last time it happened, I remember it. We were in a shower, and he's like, "Man, we've got to stop this. People are going to think we're gay." And so, from that moment on, I'd close my eyes and I'd see his dick or see him doing something to me, and then think, "Holy shit, am I gay?" That mixed with having a porn addiction from like 8 to 28, and not understanding it was an addiction, not understanding it was bad, and then because of him telling me it was small and watching porn from so young, I had an inferiority complex about my penis. So all that, the believing that I may be gay and having an inferiority complex about penis size plays a huge role in becoming that cheater and becoming that narcissist, because I needed to prove that I wasn't gay, and I needed to prove that my dick wasn't too small, essentially.
And do you know why? Or how old was that kid compared to you? Same age or?
I won't say, bro,
Oh, okay,
because
fair
then
enough.
people will know.
Yep. No, that's cool.
If someone listens to this, they'll know who it is.
Yep. Do you know why he did that?
Because he was. So I reached out to him. Now, I didn't tell anyone about this until I went and seen a sex therapist. It would have been November 2018. I spoke to him, reached out to him, and he's just like, I haven't thought about that for so long. And then we had a good conversation, and he pretty much just said that part of a church, and he had the same thing done to him. So he just thought it was what you do. Yeah, I didn't dig in and ask if it had happened to someone else or if he'd done it to someone else, but with that rationale, I'm assuming it would have happened.
You know, if he's all like, don't want to say messed up from it now. Is he like living a normal life now and all that? That hasn't affected him too much. Like, is he married with kids now? Is he gay or
living a normal life now? But man, what's normal?
Oh, yeah.
If normal is having buried trauma that causes you to be someone that you're not actually meant to be, or that you're not aligned with, then yeah, I'm not sure. Depending on your take on normal, bro.
Well, that's one thing I've realised. Normal's not really normal. Lots of people would say they're not acting normal. It's like, well, I don't know. Yeah, as you said, normal is your own thought of what normal is.
Yeah, hey, exactly, man.
Can you tell me about this small penis course thing you're doing? I know some good's probably coming out of what's happened to you.
Yeah, and it's not even about small penises, bro. It's just about being penis proud, because I've met quite a few dudes that are hung like horses and can't seem to accept the fact that they are, you know?
Oh, okay.
It's just most of this sort of stuff stems from childhood trauma or watching porn really, really young and having the expectation that everyone has this sort of penis. And then in Australia and New Zealand, I know that, you know, in most situations, we're not in a schooling environment where we get naked in front of each other. So we have perspectives. So we just grow up assuming that we're less of a man because we have a smaller penis than whoever played with us or the guy on the porn that we watch. And so that's what this is really all about, bro. Having a shift in perspective for people, having them understand their belief around their penis and what it means about them as a man, and then deconstructing that, working through it. Of course, removing porn, and then getting them to a point where they're confident enough to either speak about it or come to one of our events where we'll get a whole bunch of dudes naked and doing different exercises and becoming comfortable with being naked, as well as seeing other men, so they have a better perspective.
Oh, that's actually really interesting that you're doing that. So have you got naked in front of other people? Is that why you got the idea to do this?
Yeah. So at the end of last year, I got told to go to a workshop. And someone said in the comments, something about getting naked, and I just froze, man. And for about 3 weeks, I was catatonic, just super anxious, because getting naked and having people see my dick was like one of my biggest fears. So I went through that patch. We did the first weekend, and I was expecting to get naked the whole weekend.
Yeah.
We didn't. So I just turned up as a shell of myself, just so anxious. And we did this exercise where the people in your group give you feedback about how you showed up, and whether they trust you or not. And I didn't get really good feedback. People were saying that I showed up as a little boy, a little scared, and that's not really who I identify with. So I was pretty disappointed with my effort the first weekend, and the next weekend, which was back to back. First morning of that weekend, first day, I just put my hand up. I was like, hey, this is my biggest fear. And they pulled me up, put me on a chair, got me to strip naked and just stand up there for like 5 to 10 minutes and eyeball everyone in the room. So there was like 80 to 100 people. And yeah, man, just realized in that moment, this is not as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah.
And I've been living my life self-sabotaging and beating up on myself because of the belief that my penis was too small, when in reality, like, just a story I've made up to ensure that I feel like I'm not worthy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure lots of people go through like having that preconceived like idea, like something in their head which is limiting them. Yes, like self-limiting beliefs and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm sure like some women would go through it with having smaller boobs or having bigger lips, you know.
Yeah. Hey, what other self-development things, like, do you do like a morning gratitude or ice baths or ice showers or something different?
Yeah, so I just bought a chest freezer and put sealant all around the lining on the inside and turned it into an ice bath. So I'll wake up, I'll do my gratitude journal, I'll do affirmations and visualization. Then I'll do 2 rounds of breathing, pranayama breathing, breath of fire, and a lymphatic system type of breath, which is 4 seconds in, hold 16 seconds, out 8 seconds. And then I'll jump in the ice bath. And that's just really how I start my day, bro. I think Dr. Joe Dispenza, he wrote The Placebo Effect, which is pretty good if anyone wants to look at that in terms of visualization. He talks about at the start of the day, we have the opportunity to reprogram or program ourselves for what we want. If we pick up our phone and we go through and we scroll through, we're just confirming the past, because that's everything we already know. Instead, what he says is get into a position where you can change state physiologically, keep yourself in a good brainwave frequency, and do your affirmations, do your visualization, because it's, I guess, the gateway or the doorway to the unconscious or subconscious is through the theta brainwave frequency, which we're in when we wake up, and which we'll stay in if we do the breathing, the meditation, or whatever other mindfulness practice we do in the morning.
That's a pretty good way to start your day. Hey, so what's next for you over the next couple of years? You got anything cool planned?
To be honest, I've just stepped away from working with mining companies. We were delivering mental health workshops to mining companies and some of the bigger contractors that were working for them. So I've moved away from that. Obviously, coronavirus has come, and that sort of decimated all of our contracts in February this year.
Yeah.
But what I found was that I was just spending a lot of my time trying to convince mining general managers that mental health was an issue, or that they should invest in it. So I've decided to step away. I'm doing Penis Proud. I'm working with Happiness Co. to do content on their online platform. They've just launched that, and it's gone to like 6,000 unique users in just over a week, which has been nuts. So I'm doing How to Be Vulnerable as a Man. That's my course on that one. And that's pretty much it, bro. I'll do events as a part of Penis Proud, getting dudes together, getting naked, shaking our junk, and FIFO events when coronavirus, it all dies down.
What is this Happiness Co that you just touched on?
Happiness Co, it's probably the fastest growing social enterprise in Aussie. Hey, it's mental health, preemptive mental health company based out of Perth, but they're just winning all the small business awards around the country. Their founders just become WA Day Ambassador, Australia Day Ambassador, sorry, and they're just doing really good work. Got an online platform that's doing really well. Got social platforms that's doing really well. And yeah, man, if you haven't heard about them, you should really look into who they are if this is like an area of interest for you.
So what I do, just look up Happiness Co on Instagram and Facebook and something.
Yeah, it's I think they're probably the premier mental health business at the moment, or social enterprise.
And are you an employee of theirs, or you've partnered up? Or?
No.
No?
Yeah, partner.
So you just look for them for guidance and they look for you for content? How does that work?
I'm just friends with the guys who run it now, man. I just reached out to... I seen the guy who runs it and the general manager speak at their Man Enough cocktail gala. Reached out to them, just said, hey, love to interview you. And we just... got on like a house on fire, bro, and it's just been a constant evolution. They've seen how consistent I've been with the podcast. Like I said, it was 100 episodes, but that's 100 interviews. There's probably been about 200 episodes with my solo podcast as well. So they've just seen the consistency. They know that I'm committed to the space and to helping people. So I think they feel we just align. They're happy to have me on their platform to connect me to X amount of users, as long as I'm providing value, which I'm good with.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Hey, this studio where you got the barber chairs and stuff like that, where's that?
That's Short Black and Sides. It's a barbershop in Como. So it's just a place I was going to when I was doing FIFO, and I'd just talk to the hairdresser about what was going on. And then, when I started the podcast, after I met Julian from Happiness Co, actually, and after I interviewed him, they just said, hey, we've got this space open for Sundays and Mondays when we don't work and we don't have clients. Do you want to use it? And so that's what I've been doing, bro. They've literally, like, out of the goodness of their hearts, due to struggle that they've been through with, I think, suicide and mental health, they've lent me that space to use to film the podcast interviews.
That is so cool. I thought it was like an actual proper studio that was like you're renting out a setup, but for it to be a hairdresser, well, barbershop that's really cool.
Yeah, man.
We'll touch on the book before we wrap up. Have you written your book yet, or that's a thing that you want to do, or?
No, that's something I'm finding is a lot harder than I thought it would be, because I love writing.
Yep.
But that's probably not going to happen in the next couple of months or next 6 months, man. To be honest, the energy's been redirected to making 2-minute podcast episodes, just because they're going to be consumed a lot more frequently, and played all the way through, as well as doing this content with Penis Proud and with How to Be Vulnerable as a Man for Happiness Co.
Yeah, totally understandable. You can only do so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Yeah, I guess if you're interested in mental health, or in being vulnerable, or finding tools to help you with your mental health, then check the podcast out on all podcast platforms or YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Open Up Podcast with Lockie Samuel. And if you're interested in being part of Penis Proud, the beta program is starting in April. And if you're keen to know more, then I'll jump on a discovery call and see if we align, see if you fit who we're looking for.
What's the beta program? What's beta mean?
Like, beta means the test version.
Oh, yeah. Oh, cool. I thought that's one thing I've learned over the years. If you don't know something, don't act as if you know it. Just ask a question. Otherwise, you're smiling and agreeing, which doesn't really get you anywhere.
Yeah, it's a good trait, man. Like, the only person you're going to fool is yourself.
That's it. All right. So, yeah, you've already said where people can find you on social media. All right. Well, we might wrap it up here. Thanks for coming on the show, Lachlan. Did you have fun?
Yeah. Thanks for making time.
Always got time for you. Well, that's a wrap. I'd like to thank Lachlan again for coming on the show, and I'd like to thank you, the listener, for listening. Please tell a friend about the podcast and have a fantastic day. All right, bye.